moving everything around. Good morning! We're live, just like that, through the magic of the interwebs. We're here to hang out again. Welcome to Homebuilt Workshop. Welcome to Wednesday Live. I hope all of you are doing great today. No matter where you are in this great big world of ours, hope your day's going great, your night's going great, evening, whatever it is. Welcome to the shop. Always a pleasure to be able to hang out with all of you. And Paul's here. Paul, I think you beat me. Good morning, Paul. Paul says, hello, everyone. Hope your day's going well. It is going well. I hope yours is the same, Paul. What are you up to this fine morning? Hopefully work isn't making you too crazy. As always, I got my coffee here to get us through this morning time. I hope you got your beverage of choice. And let's settle in. Talk about shop. Talk about what we're all working on and projects and things and life and all that cool stuff. We'll give everybody a few minutes to get tuned in here. And before I jump into what I got going on, you may have seen in the cover picture what I'm working on, and yeah, we'll get to that. I haven't ruined anything yet, but Neptunes is here. Neptune says, good morning, everyone. Neptunes, good morning, my friend. Neptunes, is it okay? Can I mention what we were talking about? Robert's here. Robert says, just got the notice for the show, so here I am. Right on, Robert. Good morning. How are you doing this fine morning? I'm glad you got the notifications. That makes me happy, because I know sometimes, I don't know, it's weird. They're hit and miss, it seems. I'm glad you got it. Robert says, need to go get a cup of coffee. Yes, you have to. You can't be here without a cup of coffee. Neptune says, yes. Okay, so I want all of us to wish Neptunes a congratulations on a big promotion that he got. Unfortunately, Neptunes isn't going to be able to help us out quite as much with the moderating. You know, Neptunes has been a mod for the channel for a while, helping out, throwing up links and stuff, and for that, I'm so thankful. So thank you, Neptunes, and congrats on the new position, the new responsibilities, and whatever goes with it. But I do want to say thank you very much for your help, and yeah, hopefully you can still tune in and hang out with us here, but I want to wish you congratulations, man. That's awesome. And I truly do appreciate your help with the mod duties. So yeah, that's awesome, man. And thank you so much. And if you get a chance to jump in, we'll miss you when you're not here. Oh, Robert says, hanging in there. Oh, hang in there. Right on. Hanging in there. I got you. And Dello's here. Dello says, bad Wednesday. Dello, why is it a bad Wednesday? I'm sorry to hear that. I hope your day turns around. Tony's here. Tony says, morning, sunshine. Morning to you, Tony. How are you doing this fine Wednesday? Paul says, oh, congrats, Neptunes. Neptune says, well, thank you. It was fun. You talk like it's the end of times. No. We're still here. It's all good, man. Dello says, these days I do overnight work at the store, and today too many logistics arrived. Oh, gotcha. One of those kind of days. Well, I'm sorry, and I'm glad you could drop by, say hi, and I hope your day, hope your evening, night, whatever it is, goes good. I wish you the best, Dello. Dello says, I got to go handle that. All right. Right on. You got this, Dello. You can do it. Paul says, it's the best of times. It's the worst of times. I've heard that before. Neptune says, thanks, Paul. Excuse me. My throat. it doesn't hurt or anything, but you know, the changing of the seasons and all that jazz. So what in the world is going on around here? Well, if you saw the video last weekend, this past weekend, I finished up the other rack box, got those things all in place. Really happy with those. If you haven't seen the video, go back, watch the last video. Yeah, it's really nice to be able to have some of my stuff set up and on the desk. So that was a little sidetrack project from the acoustic guitar, but now we're back on the acoustic guitar. My goal for, well, today was to be able to show you that I had the binding installed. Let me show you that. I wanted to be able to show you the binding all glued in place. There's no binding glued in place. I spent about a day getting this thing sanded, everything smooth. I think that was Monday. Got that all sanded up. Yesterday, my goal was to get the binding in, and I didn't make it. It was. I got my binding tower and everything set up here on the bench. If you could tell in the picture, I don't know if you can still see the cover picture or not, but I ended up spending like all afternoon yesterday and a little bit last night trying to get the bearing sizes and everything fine-tuned for my binding and purfling. And I was just using a scrap of 2x4, and you know, just to test all of that. And I got everything to where it seemed like it was fitting well, and I was just about ready to start cutting on the body. But when I test fit, like a final test fit for my binding channel, I found that the binding acted like it was out of square. Like it would fit good at the bottom, and when I would put, there goes that. Here's another piece. When I was test fitting it, I found that it would rock in the channel, and I couldn't get it to fit tight on both the top and the bottom. So I couldn't figure out why that was. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Took all my binding, stacked it up, ran it through the drum sander to make sure that the edges were square, still rocked, and it almost seemed like it was actually at an angle, like my drum sander was off or something. So I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out how I was going to square up each of these pieces, getting really frustrated. But then I took this piece and I put it on the joiner because I didn't know, I just jointed this edge and the binding fit square. I don't know, I can't quite understand how it ended up crooked. But I spent all afternoon yesterday troubleshooting that, trying to get everything in alignment, and got to the end of the day, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to sleep on it and see. So I think I've got everything sorted out now. For whatever reason, something was out of square, and I still can't quite understand that because I'd flattened the top and the bottom on the drum sander, but I left the 2x4 edge on here, but it just didn't sit right. I don't know why, but now I think I got it. I'm going to do one last final test fit I'm going to make one more pass on here, cut both the binding and purfling channel, make sure everything is good, and hopefully not long after we wrap this up, I'll be able to cut the binding channels and we'll be able to make some more progress. You guys ever have days like that where you have these big aspirations to accomplish some kind of a goal, and then through maybe no fault of your own, through some random circumstance, you can't quite get it done? That was my day yesterday. I had the camera out here ready to start filming all that for the video, and I never even turned it on. I was like trying to pull these tiny hairs out, which I'm gonna have to cut that. It's getting kind of long. But anyway, that was my day, and it was full of frustrations. I couldn't understand it, but I think we got it sorted out for whatever reason. Ready to move on. And Scott's here. Scott says, "Wow, my meeting moved, and I'm finally able to catch the live. Right on. Dang those meetings. They always are at the worst time." Robert says, "I'm back with my Nutty Irishman coffee." Right on. Cheers. Harry Dude's here. What's up? Hey, peoples. What's up, Harry Dude? How's everyone in Australia? And how are things going with you? Neptune says, "I guess that's better than Nutty Irishman." Harry Dude says, "You trusted a 2x4 to be square and true?" Well, here's the weird part, right? I did, before I started doing the testing, I did run this through the drum sander, both top and bottom, to flatten that. But the way the binding channel, or the way the binding cutter works, it references off this side. So it sits flat. But even if this is at an angle, right, on the side, maybe you guys can help me pick up what I'm missing here. Even if this is out of square, the bearing rides on that. And the bit comes straight down, perpendicular to the top. So if the top and the bottom are parallel and flat, because I ran it through the drum sander, even if this is, let's exaggerate it, right? Let's say this was even, at an angle like so. The bearing's still going to ride there. The bit's still going to be square to the top and the bottom. So I don't understand how the channel was out of square. I can't wrap my head around that. I don't know. Clearly it was, because when I joined this edge and then recut the channel, it like fixed itself or something. I don't know. And then I can't grasp that. And that, I think, is what bothers me, is because I can't explain the difference that this side makes. I mean, clearly it does something, but I don't get it. Help me understand if I'm missing something there. I don't understand it. When there's a problem like that, whether it's woodworking or working on your vehicle or something like that, I like to understand what caused the problem. That way, the whole process, like it just helps. I don't know. It just helps to understand why something was doing whatever it was doing. And when I can't explain that, I don't know. You guys, enlighten me. What am I missing there? I don't get it. Let's see. Robert says, yeah, it's a combination of Irish cream syrup, hazelnut syrup, coffee, and cream. Interesting. Mike's here. The real Mike Johnson is in the house. Mike says, "Hello all, just hanging in the background today." No worries, Mike. Hope you're doing good. Paul says, "Just bought some binding for the GGBO guitar, and they sent me binding that was 0.2 millimeters wide instead of 6 millimeters wide." 0.2? What, did they send you purfling? Hit them up for a return, and they're charging me 70% of cost to ship it back. What? Interesting. Do you care to share who you bought it from? You don't have to, but that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I'd almost keep it for that. Use it for something else. What is 0.2? 0.2 millimeter? I got a decimal chart back here. 0.2 is 0.78. Yeah, that's like purfling. Yeah, I guess it could be binding. Man, that's super thin. Mine is an eighth. Mine's an 1/8 inch thick. I gotta look at my cheat sheet. So that's 3 millimeter. 1/8 inch is just over 3 millimeter. But I cut mine so that it would definitely be a little bit proud of the sides. Huh. That's a little bit of a difference. Mike says it has to ride up the donut to get to the right location. True, it does. But once the bit contacts the wood, it's at the very bottom of the donut, referencing off the top. So I could see how it would cut crooked if the top and bottom were not in the same plane, like where they weren't parallel. You know, if it was tipped, it's going to cut a crooked channel. But I don't quite get it. It's weird. Heritage has got a square handy. Check the undressed side. I actually jointed both sides. I do have a square, but I don't know if you can see that. I mean, I can't get it in the right, kind of the right angle. It's square now, but I don't have, yeah, both sides are square. Probably can't really tell that, but it's square now. I didn't check it before. I didn't. Because I didn't think that side, if it was out of square, would affect how it cut the channel. I totally can't explain it. I don't know if I can demonstrate that. I wonder if I can move this so you guys can see. We're going to try something here. We're going to try it. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'm going to scoot you over here. Nah, you might not be able to see it. I'm going to be out of the frame here just a little bit, but you can't see the donut. So there's the bit. You can actually see I've got it shimmed. I've got the bearing shimmed out with some tape. I don't know if this is going to make any difference. So I'm going to like kneel on the floor here. Let's see if we can exaggerate this somehow. I've got it shimmed up too on some just some things so that this little 2x4 is tall enough. Once I have the guitar under there, I won't need any of this stuff. So, I wish I could get the camera a little bit lower, but we're going to work with what we have. So I'll set this on edge. I was running it this way. Flat on the top, flat on the bottom, cutting the grooves in here, the channels. But just so you might possibly be able to barely see it, I'm going to stand this up. So you can't really see the donut. I don't know where else I could set this, but so if the top and the bottom, let's just pretend this is the way I was running it. The way this works is the donut underneath there, right, is what guides the whole thing up and down. But once it hits the bottom of the donut and the wood comes in contact with the bit, it's referencing off of this surface. So if this surface and this surface are flat in parallel, which they were, if this was out of square, the bit's still straight. I don't know. That's what's frustrating me. The bit doesn't move. Ow. Anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just overthinking it like I do, because I do like to understand when I'm having a problem, like how I can avoid that in the future. Anyway, I guess we can move on from that. I just wanted to pick your brain and see if you guys had any ideas as to what the heck I'm missing, why it's not clicking. All right, let's see here. Coming back to comments. Mike says, don't know. Robert said to Paul, it would probably be worth it just to keep and reorder what you want. Yeah, I kind of agree. 70% for a return fee. That's ridiculous. Heritage says, I feel your pain. My thicknesser works on narrow material. Anything full width, it craps out. Adela says, I hope you get great results. And I decided to make a simple binding tower too. I thought the binding work could be done without it, but I got a problem because of the radius. I'll not forget to coat something before making the binding channel this time. Yeah, when you cut it, I'm going to spray a coat of just a spray can shellac on the around the outside edge, just to hopefully help reduce reduce tear out and stuff. Yeah, I do like the I like the binding tower of some sort, and there's a ton of different ways you can go about creating one. I've seen them made with drawer slides and like all kinds of different ways. Really, it's a project in and of itself just to try to create your own version. So that'll be fun. Corey says sometimes your router bits can get warped at times because of the heat from cutting through wood. That's why your channel was off within 10 thousandths of an inch. Interesting. I mean, it's possible. It's totally possible. Although, I mean, I was only cutting, a couple inches at a time for the test cuts, and this is just a pine, some sort of pine, or maybe a fir. I don't know. It's just a 2x4, but it's possible. And now that I'm looking at it, maybe I had some chips under there that was actually holding the side up. That would make sense to me. If that bottom's not sitting flat, that's a possibility. I mean, I did have a couple of little pieces from this old dried 2x4 chip off. Maybe that's what happened. I mean, I can't say I was super diligent in making sure that my little platform was totally clean. Maybe that's what was going on. I don't know. Mike says, so if the router and all is leveled and the attachment to the table was off, or the router was off, or the wood was riding on something, there you go. That's maybe that's it. I mean, the tower is square. Where'd that go? Let's double check that. I'm going to scoot you guys back down. I didn't double check this. I'm just kind of moving this stuff out of the way. Can't get in there. I got too much stuff in the way. I mean, without moving all this stuff, it acts like it's square. Can't quite get this in there, but who knows? Oh, sorry about that. Like slammed you guys against the wall there. Yeah, Mike, you might be right. I might have had, like I said, a little scrap of something under there, because that would make sense to me. Ken says, depending on how rigid that mount is, I can see it not being perfectly straight. It's like my table moves, but this doesn't. It's pretty solid. I gotta stop moving that. Ken says, maybe make a router table jig for that router. I think would solve it. He says, I do mine on the router table. How do you, here's a question on the router table. How do you account for taper on an acoustic body? You know what I mean? And how do you manage that? Because the router for an acoustic body, is not flat on either side. So the router bit needs to be able to move as the depth of the body changes. I've done electric guitar bodies on a router table, and that works just fine. I mean, it actually works great. And I wouldn't even use this jig for a solid body because a router table is just perfect. There's no need, unless you're doing, I take that back. If you're doing a flat solid body, if you have like an arm bevel or maybe a carved top, shaped top, I would use this. But for just a flat body, yeah, router table is fantastic. Paul says, sorry, 2 millimeter, and it was from a company in Florida called CS Guitar Components. Note to self, if you order from them, be very careful because they charge 70% restocking fee. Terry's here. Terry says, good morning to you, Jeff, and all. Good morning, Terry. How are you doing today? Scott says, so you are routing based on squareness. Maybe the router needs to be parallel to the side instead of square to the top. I think it, I'm thinking about that. I think it needs to be square to the top. Well, in a perfect world, right, it's square to both sides. You know, your sides are parallel. Let me just grab this. Right, in a perfect world, don't bang it on anything. The router, the bearing rides along here. That's why it's important you sand your sides before you cut your binding channels. So the bearing rides here. Ideally, it's square. And then the cutter, I guess the cutter is square to the sides. Because the cutter comes down. The donut rides around this outer edge. And so that's what changes, that's what raises and lowers the height as you're going around. So the bearing is referencing off the sides, cutting straight down. So I guess it is cutting square to the side and referencing off the top. Yeah, I'm overthinking it, I think, really. It was making me crazy. It really was yesterday. Like Ken says, I joined late. Did you ruin an expensive piece of wood? No, I didn't, thankfully. Ken, what we're talking about is I spent like all afternoon yesterday trying to figure out why I'm setting up my binding and purfling channels and the binding wasn't sitting square in there. It was like the binding was out of square is what it was acting like. So I spent a ton of time resetting things, double checking, and I'm trying. We're just kind of brainstorming as to why in the world. So when I did the test, I'd flattened the top and the bottom of this scrap piece of 2x4, but I didn't do anything to the side. I left just kind of the factory 2x4 edge, and it was crooked. Well, then I took this over to the joiner and jointed off all of the test spots so that I had basically a fresh surface. And when I did that and cut a new channel, it was square. And I can't wrap my brain around why this side being out of square makes a difference here. I truly can't make that connection. Because, yeah, anyway. No, I didn't ruin anything. But my goal, I was hoping to get the binding installed yesterday, and today I could work on sanding it flush and maybe even get started on the neck. But I just didn't get it done because couldn't figure things out. I couldn't tell if my binding was out of square or if it was cutting the channel out of square. It was weird. But no, I didn't ruin anything. Just a bunch of troubleshooting and frustration for a little while. Hair Dude says you need a blower near the donut to blow the chips away. That's actually a really good idea. You could connect like a aquarium pump or something to it and see. Yeah, I don't know. See, I think once I'm actually cutting the body, I don't think the chips are going to be as big a deal. I suppose it still could be. Because I have that little sled thing that the body sits in, so nothing's going to get under the body, but I suppose a chip could get underneath that sled. Yeah. Scott says, is the horizontal plate the router is on parallel to the table? I'll double check that too. When I put this together, I made sure everything was square, but I could double check it. Yeah, that's worth a check. Get some measurements on that just to make sure. And I'm going to go through all that and just double check, because that's a good idea. I do have a little bit of adjustment in there if I need to. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just double check everything. Ken says, never made an acoustic. Okay, yeah, so for a solid body, like I mentioned already, perfectly easy task to do on a router table. Scott says, I'm looking for a different style of jig. Hold on. 10-4, good buddy. There are some different styles. There are some that you take the body and it rides on a little thing on the sides and you move it around on there. I'm not a fan of that style, although I know lots of people that use it. And I've even, did we do? No, I didn't. A friend of mine even had a jig like that. But there's something to me that it just looks very unstable, and I'm not, a lot of people use it, like I said, and they get great results from it, but to me it just looks unstable. I like this idea where it can sit in a, kind of a cradle and hold everything straight, but I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the other one. Know Your Joe says, good day, everyone. Good day, Know Your Joe. How are you this fine Wednesday? Scott said the jig works like this. Oh, sorry, I can't paste a graphic. Is it the style, Scott, that rides? You kind of balance it on the end, on the sides, and run it around this deal. Technical term, this deal. You guys know what I'm talking about. Heritage says, instead of a blower, maybe a brush near the donut. Maybe, yeah. I think I have some little brushes I might be able to put on there. What if we took, I wonder if I could take like a couple of these little guys, cut it off, mash this down, and just like screw it on there. Lots of ideas. I'm gonna play around with some of these and see. Yeah, there's always room for improvement. But anyway, now that we've beat that topic to death, I think I've got it figured out. Why still, I don't know, but I'm going to try to set that aside and move along and make some progress. I need to make some progress on this cup of coffee. Oh, it's still really hot. Here's one of my binding cutters. This is the one for the purfling channel. I'm actually using two different cutters instead of just swapping bearings because it just seemed to, I seemed to be able to get the setup I wanted that way. So I ended up, since I made since I made the purfling and the binding, they're not like stock sizes. Although I made them close, I ended up, instead of fine tuning the thickness of everything, I ended up just putting some binding tape on this bearing and to get a custom size. So it seems to work really good. I actually did that for both. So I did a custom purfling size, and then I have some tape on the binding cutter as well. So I think we've got all that worked out. Like I said, one more test cut once we're done here, just to, I don't even know, it's not even quadruple. I'm well past quadruple checking, but one last final check, and then we're going to put the router bit to the guitar body and cross our fingers. So, Harry dude, what have you been working on? What's on your workbench? Are you still on your break, or are you back to customer orders? Bit of stuttering here on the video, so hopefully you guys are not experiencing any of those types of issues. Alrighty, and also while I'm thinking of it, guys, if you're enjoying these, hit that thumbs up button. I'd appreciate it. Shows the YouTubes that this is like the coolest live ever, where we all get to hang out and drink coffee or whatever and talk about workshop stuff. Alrighty. Oh, I thought it froze there for a second. The timer. Is it freezing? It acts like it's freezing. Are we dropping out here? You guys, I need to let me know, because I'm looking at the timer and it just kind of freezes. I can't tell if we're having issues. Hopefully not. Paul says, bought a 9/16 Freud bit to route some bodies with this past weekend, and the bearing was not correct on it, so it didn't route flush. Thankfully, they took it back at no cost. You know, that's like a pet peeve of mine. I have a couple flush trim bits that the bearing doesn't seem to be exactly the same size, and it's kind of annoying. So those ones I don't use very often. I mean, I use it for non-critical things, but when I need an exact size, there's a few of those flush trim bits that I won't use, and I don't know why. And it never seems undersized. It's always the bearing is a little bit oversized, so it cuts your piece a tiny bit bigger, and that's super annoying. Like, if you're gonna make a bit, make the bearing the same size. Like, really, for a flush trim bit, I could care less, the outer diameter. That, in my experience, the outer diameter of the bit rarely makes a difference because you're just cutting something flush. So if you have to make your bit, a thousandths or, some number oversized, who cares? Make it match the dang bearing. Thanks for bringing that up, Paul, because I've been there, and I have some, and it's super annoying. And at least you didn't have to pay 70% return fee on it. Oh, boy. Harry Dude says, still on a break until Monday. Been trying to work on my little boxes, but my thicknesser isn't being happy. Cheap piece of asterisk. Interesting. Harry Dude, I got a totally unrelated question for you. I told my daughter I'd ask you. I don't know how this even came up, but somehow the other day the question of can you have a koala as a pet in Australia came up, and I said I wouldn't think so, but I have no idea. So can you have a pet koala? My daughter loves koalas, so I told her I'd ask you. Paul says guitar necks have to be precise. Yes, yeah. So that's annoying. bearings don't match the bit size. Come on, tool companies, do better. Do better. Now, I suppose maybe there's some application where you might want it oversized. I can't think of one. You're buying a flush trim bit to cut things flush, not to cut it, you know, the tiniest bit oversized. There, rant done. Yeah, the ones that I like, you guys have seen me use them. These are these Infinity, not sponsored, Infinity Mega Flush Trim bits. They even make some giant ones, but this is the 3/4 inch one, compression bit, and there's a bunch of different styles like this. I like the ones, no matter the brand. I like the ones with the bearings on the top and the bottom, for especially for template work, because depending on your thickness of your material, you may need to use the top bearing or the bottom bearing. But I like the ones with both. And I've used them from several different manufacturers, but yeah, these are the ones I like. Hair Dude says, "Don't get me started on router bit precision. Been having the same problems with bit size versus bearing size. Yeah, it's annoying." Thankfully, I've not encountered that with these. And also, I've used the ones, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Radian, the company Radian. They make router bits, Radian router bits. I forget their entire company name. I've used their stuff, works pretty good. They're straight cutter bits though. They're not the compression style, and I found that I think I like the compression style a little bit better. Those have been really good too as far as size. If it was undersized, the bearings a little bit, you can just wrap it with a, get out of here, flies. You can wrap it with a little bit of tape. Will get you through in a pinch. But if it's oversized, if the bearing is oversized, no wait, let's see. Yeah, if the bearing's oversized, you can't make it smaller without replacing the bearing and then maybe having to tape it. But in my opinion, we shouldn't have to mess with that. We should be able to just take a flush trim bit and cut a piece flush. And I don't care for the application, guitar building or whatever it is you're doing. You want it to be flush. Ah, it's annoying. Now we're all ranting. Paul says, "I normally buy Rockler bits because they have lifetime return policy. I thought about trying those bits you just showed." I like these Infinity bits. They're not super cheap. I do have a few of the Rockler ones, but I've not tried their larger size. Let me see. I have this little guy. This is a Rockler bit. The bearing's toast on it. I don't know if you can see on there, like the bearings coming apart. So this one I don't use, at least until I get a bearing for it. But yeah, this was a pretty good bit till the bearing came apart. The one that makes me crazy, in particular, is this one. And I don't even know who made this one. I don't see a name on there. I ought to just throw this thing in the trash. I like this one because of the size. Like it's a pretty decent size. But I can feel that the cutter is not flush with the bearing. The bearing is bigger than the cutter. So what that does is the piece you're cutting, it makes it bigger because it's holding the bit out from your piece. This one I really ought to just throw away while I'm thinking of it because it's junk. But I wish I could see a name on there. Well, maybe there is. I can't tell what it says though. It says flush trim something. I don't know. Paul says, I usually add a drop of oil to my bearings to keep them cool. Seems to make them last a bit longer. Yeah, I've done that to one or two. The thing I don't like about that, is when you oil it, yes, it makes it nice and smooth, but then all the dust sticks to it. Or maybe I'm putting too much on there. That's a possibility. I mean, I might get a little carried away. This one still spins good, probably because every time I use it, I want to toss it. Hairdo says, and for Haley, it is illegal to have a koala as a pet here in Australia. I kind of figured that was probably the case, but I told her I'd ask just to make sure, and now we know. Now we know. Thanks for clearing that up. Probably the same with the kangaroo, I'm guessing. It'd be like having a bear or something as a pet here, a black bear. Paul says, I bought some Yanako bits, but they wound up being cheap and they break a lot. On the road says, greetings, Jeff. 1:46 a.m. here. Well, greetings to you. How are you on the roads? Dallas says, have you ever experienced bearing exploding? I have not, thankfully. That sounds horrible. The most I've had them come off, and Paul, I think you just experienced something like that, if I remember correctly. I've had them come loose. I've had them really freeze up. I've had the little dust shields come off. That's what's going on that little rockler bit. But I've never had one like just explode. Yeah, now I'm kind of in the habit of making sure that they're tight, making sure they spin good before I use them. And yeah, I've not had any issue. The main ones that I really get nervous of are the binding cutters, because normally I don't take the bits off, or I don't take the bearings off. But these, that's what they're there for. You're changing them to get different sizes. Oh well, there goes that bad one. So I'm always making sure that those are snug so that they don't come off, because that sucker comes off while you're cutting your binding channel, you're gonna have a bad day. And I don't mean just because it's gonna fly somewhere, but if it just drops off, it's not gonna. Then your side's gonna go right into your bit, and it's gonna be ugly. So always make sure they're snug. Paul says, yes, I hate when the bearing explode or when the Allen nut comes out and the bearing spins up and cuts up the templates. Yeah. I've not had one just come apart on me. I haven't experienced that. Paul says, I only use a StewMac binding cutter for working on guitars. I have a full set of the bearings, have never had an issue with them, so worth the money. That's the way I feel about these. These are not the StewMac ones. These are, again, not sponsored. These are the Amana rabbiting cutters, they call them. They have two different sizes in the Amana bits, and I have both of them, and I like the the different combinations of sizes. Just, I don't know. You could probably get by with one or the other, but I don't know. I always end up mixing and matching. They both have the same, from what I can tell, the same size bearing set with them. It's just a different cutter. Dallas says, money is the best. Yeah, I mean, it is worth it in, I don't want to say all the time. A lot of times you don't have to have like the super expensive ones, but for critical stuff like this, like cutting binding channels, I am totally okay spending the money, getting the good parts. Other applications, may or may not be as critical. Cutting like pickup cavities and stuff. I don't need a, 50, 60, 80, $100 bit for that. But for trimming things flush, I like a good bit. And for binding channels, like I said, the critical stuff, I'll buy the good bits for it because I don't want to. I want to. I want to maximize my chance of successes. Hair Dude says, I've had a bearing come apart. Not a happy day. Many a bad word was uttered. I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, I've not, thankfully, I've not had one just come apart. And, I'm sure someday it's going to happen. But so far, so good on that. I've had other stuff happen, but Heritage says I regularly replace my flush trim bits. MDF is a killer on the cutting edges. Yeah, yep. I think that's why part of the reason that Rockler one kind of is in a little worse is definitely worse for wear. I've made a lot of templates and copied templates and stuff with that one, and I'm kind of hard on those, like doing pickup cavities and stuff like that. The smart thing to do is try to remove a lot of the waste with like a Forstner bit, drill bit of some sort. A lot of times I get my template in place and I'm ready to cut, and I just go to town with the router. I'll plunge it in there, and yeah, some of those smaller ones, I show no mercy. Paul says I did get some resistance from Woodcraft when I took the Freud bit back the day after I bought it. They said it was used. I said, how would I know it was wrong if it wasn't? Well, yeah. Yep. Have any of you guys used some sort of a router bit that's made for plastic? I have a friend who is uh, trying. We're trying to make some like plastic emblems for a vehicle. I feel like I feel like I talked about this quite a while back, and the project kind of got put on the shelf for a little while. But I'm trying to figure out a good way to make some emblems for a vehicle. I'm right now doing some tests for 3D printing using some different materials. But I thought about maybe machining it with the CNC. But I got to find some bits for plastic, and I just wanted to see if you guys had any recommendations. I've not used any plastic on the CNC or in a router. So I gotta do a little research. If you have any suggestions or something maybe you've tried before, let me know. Because I think if I just use a regular like a wood router bit, I don't think it's gonna work so good. Dallo says, kind of comedy. It is. Paul said, luckily I had taken pictures. Yeah, that's a smart move. Paul said, I tried routing the Lego caster with regular bits, wound up having to slow the bit down to prevent melting. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. And I know I've seen like milling bits for plastic, where it actually just, creates chips instead of melting it and makes a mess. Heritage says I use regular wood router bits for pick guards. Yeah, I could see that working. Maybe you're just you're flush cutting with a template. Um, what I would want to do really is to take. I think what I have is some HDPE or something very similar to that, and I'd want to machine out some wording and cut the thing to shape. So it's a little bit more than um, just cutting it to a specific size. I don't know. I've 3D printed it in PLA as a sample, and of course, PLA is not going to hold up outside. So I'm testing it with some ABS, 3D printed ABS, but my printer is real finicky when it comes to printing ABS. I can get it, I can get it to work, and the quality is decent, but I don't know if I don't know in the long run if it's going to work for what we're trying to do. Here it says depends on the plastic. Is Dremel 194 end mill. I'll have to look into that one. Paul says I use regular bits to make my templates out of Corian. It works fine. Legos tend to become projectiles when routing. You know, I could see that happening. Corey says you want to use the diamond CNC cutters designed for hard plastic material because the diamond edge cutters will cut through hard plastic very easy and quick. I will look into those. Corey, do you know of a company that sells that off the top of your head? Do you have a source for that? I mean, I'll do a search, but my first place I would check probably is like Tools Today. That's where I order some of my bits from. You know, they're super fast shipping actually. On the Road says I also used regular wood bits to make some Perspex piano badges with no issues. Yes, I'm not the part that I'm a little bit cautious of is like cutting out the lettering. It's basically raised lettering in a piece of plastic. So I need to machine away all that material so that the letters are there, and then cut it out to size. I don't know. Neptune says, "Do you want me to try printing it in resin?" You know, I thought about that. How well does the resin hold up to UV? I guess is my question. If it holds up well, you know, to UV, yes, I think we should try it. I've got a few different samples that I need to send my buddy to try out and mess around with, and yeah, I'm just trying to find something that'll hold up. You know, being it you know how like on your vehicle it'll have the little plastic badge of some sort that says what it is. Yeah. So it's going to be outside. Neptune says MSC Enco for end mills. Yeah, I'll look at there too. I got to do a little more research. I know they're out there, but for some reason that just came to mind and thought I'd throw it out there. You make a very good point. You say it is UV cured. I mean, that's true. I guess it would hold up to UV. Have you ever made anything that stayed outside for a long time? Heritage says I use the Dremel end mill for cutting 3 or 5-way switch slots. It says, how large is the emblem? It's seriously like 2 by 4, 1 3/4 by 4, 4.5, something like that. It's not very big. Yeah, it probably would. It probably would work fine. I think maybe we'll have to experiment with that. Because I know the quality there will come out better than what I'm getting with the ABS. Because I don't have an enclosure, so it's really once I get it to stick, that's the hard part, getting it to stay on the print bed without using a bunch of glue. I refuse to use glue sticks. Heritage says create a 3D printed buck and cast it in epoxy. We were talking about that. I think that would be kind of cool. I could use the 3D printed one to make like a mold. I was thinking like a silicone. I could cast it in silicone and then pour the epoxy in there. I think that would be kind of cool too. Once we get it worked out, I'm debating on making a video on it. If we were doing some casting, I think I totally would, because that'd be something new for me. I've never cast anything in my entire life. That would be kind of fun. Maybe make it a bunch of different ways, and then he can figure out which way he wants to go with it. Neptune says, okay, my height is 6 inches, so it would fit. Yeah, it's only like 3/8 of an inch tall, so it would totally fit. Corey says there's several different companies that sell diamond bits for the CNC. Some of them do take the Dremel diamond cutting bits. Interesting. Scott says they make a collet for the CNC that handles 1/8" bits. Yes, I have one of those. I haven't put an 1/8" bit in there, but there's a string on my shoe that I got to get rid of. Sorry. I do have one of those collet reducers. It'll take it from a 1/4 inch and allow you to put a 1/8" collet in there. Because I wanted it, I bought it a while ago because I do have some 1/8" bits for this rotary tool that I could see me using in the CNC. So yeah, that project it's not one that's like is coming up immediately, but it is something that I'm kind of working on behind the scenes, getting things figured out, and maybe that would be kind of fun. You know, trying to make this little thing several different ways. It might be kind of fun actually. Cast one in epoxy. Maybe we do a 3D printed one, machine one on the CNC. I don't know. I haven't decided yet on that. Kind of how we want to go. I might just do it behind the scenes and send it off to them. But just wanted to brainstorm that here with you guys for a few. So anyway, you guys got anything else? Before we wrap this up, we are gone past the hour. I've noticed the flies are starting to come out. It must be warming up outside. Dang flies. So, well, anyway, guys, while you're putting in any last minute questions, comments, suggestions, again, I want to say congrats to Neptunes on the new position, and a big thank you for helping out with the moderation, being able to post links and stuff, all super handy. So right on, man. Thank you and congratulations. And Neptune says, I use regular high-speed steel bits when machining acrylic. Carbide would last longer. Yeah, I gotta do some more research. Like I said, it's not one that's on the workbench at the moment. Just kind of working out some of the details before we get to that. But I gotta get to it because we were chatting about it the other day, and I told him I'd get back on that project. So anyway, guys, we're gonna wrap this up because, well, I got some binding channels to cut and purfling. It would be awesome if by this afternoon I had the binding installed. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So wish me luck. And I got my fingers, toes, eyes, everything crossed that everything goes well. So I'm going to do one more test cut, like I said, and then we're hitting the body with the router bit. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And yeah, don't forget, next week, same time, same channel. And we'll be back at it. Hope you guys all have a great week. Get out in your shops, make some cool stuff. Make, build, fix, modify, whatever. Just have some fun and enjoy the time. So you guys all stay safe, stay well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Hit it. Hit it right now before we sign off. Hit it. Yeah, I know you want to. Right on, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care, and we'll see you all next time.